This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com. Let's just take a pause here and keep in mind that we'll call it early to mid-October. At this point in the year, Bret's the champion. He's being built to face Bob Backlund with Owen Hart right behind him. Diesel and Shawn are tag champions. Fast forward several weeks and Diesel's going to pin Backlund in 6 seconds and Diesel is a babyface champion. When were the wheels put in motion for that? Because it does feel like it happens very quickly from this point.
It did happen quickly, and there was a groundswell, if you will, of whatever Diesel was doing. The audience was buying and popping for it. The audience, they were ready for him at that point, and no matter what we did, the audience wasn't going to accept him in any other way other than a badass babyface. So you're left with the dilemma of, do you turn him now or do you wait and fight the tide? And a lot of times, we would wait and fight the tide. This was an opportunity to go for it. Business was what it was, and if you're going to do new, wanted to do new before the push to WrestleMania, and let's get out there. Let's give it a shot. And sometimes you go through those periods where it's like, fuck, man, let's just try something new and see what holds. This was that opportunity.
Let's talk about it. It comes out in the Observer on the 5th of December. Diesel became the latest attempt to recreate a Hulk Hogan by capturing the WWF title from Bob Backlund in just 8 seconds with a jackknife powerbomb on November 26th at Madison Square Garden. The title switch came just 3 days after Survivor Series, where Backlund had won the title from Bret and Diesel had turned babyface on partner Shawn Michaels. The quickie title change was largely given away to anyone who could read between the lines on TV Saturday, both nationally and locally in the New York market. On the USA Network's WWF Mania show, it was announced there would be a title match between Backlund and Diesel, replacing the quote unquote injured Bret Hart at the Garden, and that the WWF would open its 900 number line for live commentary of that match starting at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. In the New York market, the title change was telegraphed even deeper by announcing that the match was no DQ, no countout, and no submissions, therefore rendering Backlund's finishing chicken wing maneuver useless. Backlund also did an interview for the New York market, complaining that he had trained to wrestle Bret Hart, not Diesel. At a crowd that was announced, or estimated at rather, 7,300, Howard Finkel made the announcement of the match, but stated in a tease that it would be a non-title match, and then corrected himself after a supposed change of plans given to him by agent Rene Goulet. Earlier in the show, Backlund did a live interview to a chorus of heavy boos, claiming that he would be a much better moral leader than Bret Hart, while fans chanted for both Bret and Diesel. The match itself was short, as it needed to be because of who was in there, with all the fireworks adding to the huge crowd reaction for the title change. Later in the show, Diesel came out to thank the fans amongst another barrage of fireworks, and he was called the leader of the new generation on Monday Night Raw, live on November 28th. Nash, who was 35 and billed at 7 foot tall. By the way, he was listed at 6'9" when he played basketball.
He grew.
Is a Michigan native who played.
He was stretched early on and he grew.
So he's given, sort of the background. But here's the story. 14 months after you guys bring him in to be a bodyguard, well, he's the world champ.
It's a great story, isn't it?
It really is. When you really think about it, it's a ride. He has a story like not a lot of other folks, just tremendous. The thinking in doing it this way is we want to give Diesel a try with the strap. We want to make him our top guy. We want to feature him, but we're not ready to just have him take the belt off of Bret. So we interject Bob Backlund as sort of a transitional champion, if you will. But he's someone who has credibility. And it's funny because in that era, we looked at Backlund as being a quote unquote old man. He's only 45. I mean, some of the top stars in WWE and wrestling all over are older than that. But he's also the former WWF champ from 78 to 83. So he has a lot of credibility.
One of the hottest heels in the business at the time.
I guess what I'm driving at is,
okay, two can play that game.
Okay, there we go. Let's do it. Let's talk about it. Why the pivot away from Brett? You know, it feels like Vince was trying to make Brett the next Hulk Hogan. And you've often talked about here on the show that internally you guys would say, what would we do if it was Hulk? The idea being, let's not change the way we market or present our main attraction or our top star or our champion. Let's keep doing it the same way. But it can't be argued that business is not exactly booming under Brett's title reign. For whatever reason, it's just not having the same success that maybe they had with Hulk Hogan before. And maybe the business is cyclical, which feels a little bit like a cop out, but it is something that's been said in wrestling for a long time. Maybe fans just weren't into Bret Hart. Maybe they did want a more larger than life sized individual as opposed to a great technical wrestler. Is that the thinking on Vince's side? I mean, if you had to get into his head of why he would pivot, let's forget Bob for a minute, why he would pivot from Bret to Diesel. Is it because he thought, well, they're just not buying the great technical wrestler. He'll still be near the top of the cards, but we've got to have a monster, a larger than life individual to be our new sort of Hulk Hogan?
Well, the answer to that is business was not good, and we did need to make a change. You look at your roster, you have your players, and you've got to be able to play with what you have. Looking at the list of people on there, you know, Razor Ramon was considered. But Kevin was hot. Diesel, that character, he was red hot at the time. And that was based on the other things that we were doing with him, you know, where he wasn't even necessarily featured. But he, you know, the experiment, putting him with Shawn and doing that, it was working because he was over and he was getting to the point where he was probably the most popular guy on the card each and every night. Business, nobody was setting anything on fire. And it's interesting, you know, because we have talked about, you know, what would we do if it was Hulk with the Bret deal? I think that changed here from the standpoint of Hulk's Hulk. Warrior was Warrior. Savage was Savage. We have to treat each individual, because if everybody's treated like Hulk, then everybody's going to be compared to Hulk.
Right.
And here we are in 2020, and I think people are still compared to Hulk because Hulk was the first. Hulk was the biggest at the time, and just the longevity of Hulkamania and the phenomenon that is Hulk Hogan. So it was easy to compare. This was a point where, right or wrong, that at least we were looking at, let's do what we would do for Diesel and try that route.
Listen, they do take some of the, some of what Meltzer said, hey, this might work if we keep it short. That's actually what you guys wound up doing. The first tour of house show dates happens in upstate New York, and in all three cities, Diesel beats Bob Backlund in 30 seconds. And then jackknifes both Owen Hart and Jim Neidhart when they do post-match run-ins. He leaves all three laying. He gets huge pops when they come out and when he leaves them laying.
You know why jackknifed those two guys?
Why?
Because after Bob Backlund took that first jackknife in the garden, he said he's never going to fucking do that to me again.
Really?
Yeah, Bob wouldn't take any more of those jackknives.
Is that a real story?
That's a real story. Bobby didn't like the way that he landed him and let him go and landed right on his tailbone and said, I'm not doing that ever again.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.